Ashley with At Home with Ashley, and today we're gonna make a puppet theater. I am so excited about this project. I've been wanting to do it for probably a year, and then my son was like, "Can I have a puppet theater for Christmas?" And I'm like, "Yes, yes you may." So we have gathered all the scraps of wood that we can. It's all right here. You can kind of see the edge of it. I ordered a bunch of very fancy trim because we're gonna make a very cool puppet theater. We're starting today. I'm very excited. So these are, my inspiration for this is actually a puppet theater that was made in France in the 1800s. They made these for a lot of kids. It's called the Guignol Theater. So if you look that up, you can buy some on eBay or Etsy, sometimes old ones that are really cool. But I'm not gonna buy that. I'm gonna make a new version. And the person who invented these lived in France in the 1800s, and he actually had a dentist. He was a dentist, and to get people in the doors, so he could pull their teeth, he would do like a little puppet theater. And soon, like, the puppets were more popular than the dentistry, so he's stopping a dentist. He opened puppet theaters, and he did them for adults first. They were satire, and over time they were more geared towards children, and because those were so popular, they made little ones for children to have at home. So I can put some pictures of the old vintage ones on here because they're so cool looking, and you can see that that is my inspiration. So now you know the backstory. Let's get started. Here are the supplies I bought for this project. These are all the onlays. Aren't they so beautiful? On my blog, I have a full list with links to everything so you can get it yourself. I got this amazing pillow sham at an antique shop. And I was gonna use it to make a dress out of it because I really like this thick fabric for winter. It was $3. I bought 3 of them. And I brought it home, and then we were thinking about doing the puppet theater, and I was like, this is the most beautiful backdrop ever. So it's just a standard pillowcase, which I think is a great idea. It's gonna fit perfectly, but also these are so easy to thrift or to find on eBay, and it's really affordable. And I mean, that's just so gorgeous. So I'm using a seam ripper to kind of start taking apart the sides. And because it has like this extra fluff in it, and I don't like the fluff. So I'll take those apart, make a pull pocket on the top, and it'll be like a very simple backdrop, which will look so cute with puppets in front of it, I think. The first thing we're going to do for this project is cut all of our wood to size. I have a cut list on my blog with links to all of the trim I used. I personally tried to use stuff I had on hand, and the frame is built with 2x4s. So as you can see, we're going to cut this 2x4, and this is going to be the pieces, and I have everything listed on the measurements, and it is cold here. It is very snowy. So we're going to brave the snow for like an hour and do all of our cuts at once. But this is pretty simple in terms of cut wise because most everything is cut on a 90-degree angle, or some of the things are mitered, which is the 45-degree angle, but it's very basic. For this onlay, I didn't like the top decorative part, so we just cut it off with the jigsaw, and then we're sanding it smooth. This is what the puppet theater name is going to go on. And then this is the ledge for the front of the puppet theater, and so we are just cutting out some notches so that it'll sit perfectly on top. So this is a little bit fancy, but not really. This wood ledge is just getting a good sanding. It used to be trim in our house that we're reusing, so that's good. So here is the wood layout, and this is how the frame of the front of the puppet theater is going to look. So it's just 2x4s, very simple. This is definitely doable. So for this project, we only had 3-inch screws on hand. If you do this project, buy 5-inch screws and it'll be much easier. So he kind of created with the drill bit a pocket hole, and now he's going in on an angle to secure the pieces of 2x4 together with the 3-inch screw. But you could go much simpler from the bottom to the top with the 5-inch screw. But this also works if you have this size screw on hand as well. Once the hole is made, then the screw can just be drilled in. On top of the support piece we just created, we are going to put this filler piece of wood, and I'll show you why in a second. And then we're using a canvas for the front of the puppet theater, and we just marked where it'll go. And the top of that, we're adding another 2x4 for the next support piece. To attach the canvas, all we're going to do is nail it in so that the frame is nailed into the support 2x4s. That spacer piece of wood was added so that we could put baseboard on top of it, and this creates the base for the puppet theater, and you want it a little bit thicker so it's nice and sturdy. Okay, here's the ledge we're going to use for the bottom of the window opening. You can see Preston notched it out, so this will fit perfectly in here. Okay, so the ledge is going right on top of the canvas because there's a 2x4 support there. And at first we tried attaching it with just nails and it was too flimsy this way. And this is where your child is going to be putting a lot of pressure on it. So you want it nice and sturdy. So instead of nails, we went with screws and that was much more sturdy. We're just over here putting the frame together and it looks so good. So that's the bottom with our vintage wood trim that was in the house originally. Here's the ledge. This is where the opening will be. It's coming together so nicely. Now we're screwing on the top support piece. This is going to be for the top of the puppet theater, and we're using the same method as before, just going in on an angle. And we are about 20 inches above from the last piece, so this is going to be the top of the opening of where the little puppets will go. And now we are going to put in the rope trim, and this is going to be the decorative part on either part of the puppet theater. The next thing we're going to mount are these adorable drapery rods. They're magnolias, and my sister got them thrifting for me for $2 a piece. And it's going to hold the rod that holds the curtains for the puppet theater. And if you buy these online, they're like $45 for a set. So thanks to my sister, because it's going to make it so cool. And I also hope you noticed we used a canvas for down here, and I think that was really genius. That was my husband's part. And I have art. I was going to try to paint my own, but I got overwhelmed by that. So I have art that I just bought a printable, and then I'm printing it on architectural paper. And so I'll mount that when it's ready. And the great thing about the canvas being used like this is we just nailed it on. And now that's like the front of the base, which I think it looks so nice. So next I'm nailing in this trim that's like egg and dart, and it's very formal, and a lot of the examples I'm just trying to make it look as much as I can with what I have on hand or what I can buy. So this will go on the top of the opening of the puppet theater and on the sides next to the rope trim. Next, we're nailing in a little spacer above the rope trim, and if you see that cute drapery rod holder, that will sit on top of this. We need the rod to kind of sit in front of all the trim, so the drapery can also sit in front of it, you know, the curtains for the cute puppet theater. So we had this rope trim on hand from our bedroom previously, and we didn't have enough, but if we had enough, we would have cut it this height, so we had to do like a little spacer piece so that this can sit up high enough. But if you just get the rope trim, then you can cut it this height, then you don't have to do the spacer piece. But that'll be hidden really nicely. And I think, oh my gosh, it's gonna look so nice. Okay, so now we're finishing up the top of the puppet theater, and for that we have a piece of plywood that we're nailing into the support 2x4s on the sides of the puppet theater. We're using a thin piece because once again we're just using what we have on hand, but in the blog post I suggest using a 1/2-inch piece, and that way it'll be much easier to nail on the onlay pieces. Now we're attaching the drapery rod holder, and we're going from behind with a screw to go into those thick drapery rod holders. On the back of them, they have a way to nail them on the wall, but screwing is much better. Now we're at the fun part. We can start nailing on the onlays, and like I said, I tried to copy exactly what I saw, and so we're just putting rosettes on either side. We have these cute shells for on top of the supports. This is when it gets really exciting. The fun thing about these onlays is they're so beautiful. They're just instant gratification. So you just nail them on. Later you'll have to fill the holes, so don't do too many nails if you don't need to, but it looks so good. On the top pieces of trim that we're adding, I'm also gluing them on because our plywood is so thin. And for this middle piece that I'm going to glue on, that one can get knocked a lot. So that one's getting nailed and glued, so it's extra secure. So you can choose if you end up doing that. Okay, I'm trying to show as much of it as I can because we're at the point where it's really starting to look like the inspiration photo. I mean, they're all different colors because I haven't painted or filled in holes, but you can really see it coming together. Okay, I want to show you the art we're going to put on the bottom. It's a cat. My son loves cats. I had this printed on architectural paper, so it's really thin, so I'll have to kind of protect it with Mod Podge, which will be fine. I got a printable online that I paid for and then got it printed. I was just gonna paint something, but this will be much faster and easier to replicate. And I think it's gonna look so good. To adhere the print to the canvas, first I'm putting some Mod Podge onto the canvas, and then I will put the paper on top of it. mine just got a lot of wrinkles, and I tried so hard. Like, I pulled it up, I put it down, still wrinkly, and I am just choosing to believe that it looks cool this way. Once the paper's down, I'm putting another layer of Mod Podge on top of the print, and this will protect it. And I know I say Mod Podge weird, I like it. So I'm just using a foam brush to make sure it covers all of the print. I'm at the, oh crap, I hope I didn't ruin the stage. I put the art on, I put a top coat on, and it just looks like garbage right now. But I'm gonna let it dry. It should dry clear, but I have some spots that are very chunky. I used some older stuff. Anyway, it is very wrinkly, but I'm also kind of feeling like it gives it kind of an old feel, but I'll let it dry. It should be fine. While that dries, I am painting the trim that will go onto the top of the canvas, and this will be impossible to paint if I nailed it on without painting first. It is now officially finish work time, so I am just taking wood filler, and in every single hole where I made a nail hole, I am filling it up, and if the nail holes are really big, I'll let it dry and then do a second coat. Meanwhile, I'm starting to sew the curtains for the front of the puppet theater with white velvet. So I did 2 coats of paint on this trim. Now that it's dry, we are just nailing it to the canvas. The wood filler is all dry, so it's time to sand it smooth. This is not a fun step, but it makes it look very nice. And now, the moment I have been waiting for, I am painting the whole thing with Frosted Sage by Bear. That's the color. I love this color. It's a perfect minty blue. My son loves this color too, so that's why I'm doing it. And I am trying not to get painted, so I'm holding my dress weird. Sorry about that. I am using a latex wall paint for this project, which I think is going to be nice and durable. This whole thing is going to need a second coat though, so this will take a while. The theater has the first coat of blue paint, and it's looking really close to the example pictures. On the example pictures, all of these onlays were gold, and I was like, oh, it takes so long. But I do have gold rub and buff that I'll put and highlight some of the things, which I think will look cool. And then I'm gonna put a theater sign on here, which will be cool. So this is a huge step forward, I feel like. And there's the kitty. Before I'm doing my second coat of paint, I've noticed all of these cracks. So I'm using caulk wherever 2 pieces of trim hit each other in the seams to fill them in, and then I am doing my second coat of paint to really finish it up. Now that the paint's all on, we stood it up, and now you can really tell it looks like a puppet theater. This is very exciting. We still need to figure out the sides though. So next I am adding that gold rub and buff I talked about, and I have a little cloth over my finger to protect it so I don't have a gold finger, and I am just putting the rub and buff paint, I'm squeezing it right onto my finger, and then I am rubbing it onto the highlights, and it looks old and cool, and this is a very fun step. I loved everything painted blue except for this banner sign, and so I'm going back and painting it white so I can put the theater sign on top of it, and this will take a few coats of paint, but it already looks better. To create the letters for my puppet theater, I have just programmed my Cricut Joy to cut them onto gold vinyl, but you could just go to the craft store and buy gold letters. I think mine were about 2 inches high, and look how cute they look. I used transfer tape, and then I just pushed the letters on, pulled the transfer tape off, and it looks so good. And then I used more gold rub and buff along the edges to really highlight those as well. For the backdrop, I unpicked that whole pillowcase, pulled it apart, serged the edges, and now I am just sewing a pull pocket into the top and then putting a wood dowel, this is a 5/8 inch wood dowel, into the pull pocket. Now that the front is done, we're going to build our side supports, and we're just using more 2x4s for this. So if you're going to follow my tutorial, you can do this at the beginning. We just like are figuring it out one step at a time. So we connected 2x4s together, and then we're adding hinges at the end, and then we will connect this to the front of the puppet theater with the hinges. Now that the side supports are on, we are drilling a hole, and this will make it so we can put the backdrop through this hole and it'll hold it up. Then here's Preston putting the backdrop that's on the dowel through the 2 holes, so you can kind of see how it sits about 5 inches from the front of the theater and looks really cute as a backdrop. Now that the side supports are built, I am painting those as well. I bought some white velvet from the store to use as puppet theater curtains, and I have been sewing those to go on a pull pocket and just been hemming the edges. Okay, so I have this backdrop. This was made from that pillow sham, and it's just gonna sit flat like this behind. So that's done. I need to iron it because it's a little like wrinkly on the edges. But then I started sewing the curtains for the front of the puppet theater because I want it to like be able to open and close. It's fun. But what I just did was I sewed a pole pocket, and when it's on the pole, which I can't show you because it's getting painted right now, it's so stiff it doesn't want to move. So I'm thinking what I need to do is on the back, instead of a pole pocket, on top of it, I'll just sew like little pieces of ribbon so that it can gather better. So that's what's next, but this white velvet is so pretty. It's gonna look good when I figure it out. So to create a way for the fabric to open and close easier, I'm using these ribbons, and no, I took off about half of these. I decided it was too much, so I just put them equal distance apart and then sewed them all together. Note, I wish I would have cut these ribbons a bit longer and folded them over at the top and the bottom so they were more supported. Next, I bought these wood knobs, and I'm using them as finials on the end of the drapery rods, and here I am putting them on. You can see how those ribbons work. They work really nicely, and it all looks very cute when it's all pushed together. So Preston is drilling a hole in the dowel, and then he's using a dowel screw to connect the finial to the dowel. I wanted a way to tie back the curtain, so here's Preston drilling a hole and then putting in just like a little cup hook. So on the side of the curtain, I ended up sewing a little piece of ribbon, and then it's connected to this loop that you can just open, and so a little kid can easily open and close it to make it more dramatic. I just got back from the fabric store, and I got this fabric. It was on clearance. I think it ended up being $7 for the yard, which is so affordable. And what I'm doing with it is I'll cut it in half, so I only need 1 yard, and this is upholstery fabric, so it's 54 inches wide, and then this will get stapled on here, and this will be the side of it, so then my son can kind of like go through here to get into it, and then technically like, oh, it's a puppet theater, you can't see from the side the person doing the puppeteering, and then this covers it up nicely. So we needed these like side wings for a few reasons. So number one is it stabilizes this. So that was the biggest one. Number two is this hole holds the backdrop. And number three, it hides the person inside. So I've just gotta kind of like finish the edges, then I'll staple it on. And then we got this really pretty, I don't know if you can tell, it's Greek key ribbon. And then where the staples are, I'll just glue this on top of it, and that'll be finished really nicely. But I think this color is so good, so I had to share that win. So to finish off this fabric for the sides of the back supports, all I'm doing is cutting it in half, then I'm serging all 4 edges, and then I'm hemming over the sides and the bottom so that those are a nice finish edge. For the side supports, I wasn't super happy with how they were connected. You could fold the puppet theater flat, but you couldn't upholster the side like I wanted it to, so we are reconfiguring it, and on my blog I will give a diagram for the right way to do it if you actually want to make this. So now that the side supports are in the right spot, we can upholster them with this fabric. And like I said, this is going to hide the puppeteer, and we're just stapling it on top really easy. And so the bottom's going to be loose so you can easily get in and out of it. Okay, so now that this is stapled on up top, it looks terrible up there, good everywhere else. So we're just going to glue this on to cover it up. So for gluing it, I'm just using hot glue, super easy, and then I am finishing the end so it doesn't fray on the top, because that'll just be covered. So using hot glue for that, and then just putting glue on the top and pushing it down flat. Very easy, very quick, which is exactly what I needed at the end of this long project. And here is how the puppet theater came together. I love it so much. I'm so excited with how this project came together. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe for more very exciting videos like this.